In 1957, Lockheed proposed a new design based on the L-188 Electra airliner to replace the United States Navy's aging fleet of P-2V Neptune and P-5M Marlins. The proposal met all of the Navy's requirements and was accepted in April 1958. A prototype was created from a modified Electra and designated YP-3VI and flew on 25 November 1959. This would later be designated the P-3A Orion. By late 1960, a production contract was in place, and the first P-3A flew in April 1961, entering service with the United States Navy, August 1962. By the early 1960s, the RAAF also, with aging Neptunes in No. 11 Squadron, were looking for a replacement. The RAAF's ongoing relationship with Lockheed made the Orion a logical choice, and at the end of 1964, it was decided to re-equip No. 11 Squadron with 10 P-3Bs by 1968 and relocate the squadron to Edinburgh, South Australia. The P-3B was an improved variant of the P-3A, appearing in 1965 with improved navigation and mission systems, an auxiliary power unit for independent ground and emergency in-flight power, and the more powerful Allison T-56A-14 engines. In November 1967, Australian crews travelled to US naval air stations at Moffett Field and North Island to commence their Orion training. Australian Orion crews would be comprised of 2 pilots, 1 or 2 flight engineers, tactical coordinator, navigator and 5 air electronics officers as sensor operators, radio operator and visual observers ordnance operators. The first aircraft for No. 11 Squadron arrived in Australia in May 1968 to Edinburgh. The Orion's increased range, speed and reliability enabled it to operate more widely with shorter response times than the Neptune. This was ideal for Australia to meet her obligations to monitor large expanses of the strategically important southwestern Pacific and eastern Indian Ocean. The Orion was also crucial for the patrolling Australia's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone and while maintaining a search and rescue standby commitment. Between November 1969 and April 1970, RAAF Orions were tasked to closely monitor a Soviet Zulu-class diesel submarine and its 2 civilian escorts, conducting what is believed to have been hydrographic surveys off Australia's east coast and the Great Australian Bight. Lockheed further developed the Orion in 1968 with the CP901 central computer linking advanced search radars, acoustics processors, electronic support measures, magnetic anomaly detector, and low light level television. This newly equipped aircraft, with significantly altered internal layout, would be the P-3C, which also incorporated advanced navigation and tactical systems, including the ASN-84 inertial navigation system and secure Link 11 tactical data link, and 48 externally loaded sonobuoy launch tubes. The P-3C would undergo further updates to avionics, weapons and sonobuoy capabilities through the late 1960s and into the 1970s. It was in the early 1970s that the RAAF's No. 10 Squadron, operating Neptunes, now considered the P-3C. In May 1975, 8 of the most updated P-3Cs were ordered, with an additional 2 in November 1976. 10 Squadron had been located at Townsville, but once equipped with Orions moved to Edinburgh with No. 11 Squadron to form No. 92 Wing in 1977. Combining the maintenance operations of both squadrons, No. 492 Squadron was formed for maintenance. For training, the Maritime Analysis and Training Squadron became No. 292 Squadron in October 1980. Between 1980 and 1982, No. 10 Squadron Orions were fitted with British Marconi AQS 901 processors by the Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation. This system could monitor all available sonobuoys, including the advanced Australian-developed SSQ 801 Barra Passive Directional Sonobuoy. RAAF Orions were at the forefront of Australia's Cold War posture. Operation Gateway was in response to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 and the need for surveillance in the strategically important Indian Ocean, Malacca Straits and South China Sea. This operation was to provide an ongoing presence in the area with a permanent Orion detachment at Butterworth, Malaysia. During this operation, much intelligence was gathered in relation to Soviet movements in the area, tracking Charlie and Echo II class submarines and their surface escorts. During Operations Caterpillar and Enquarter in June 1982 and March 1983, RAAF Orions operating from the Cocos Islands monitored a Soviet naval group recovering the Bor-4 unpiloted experimental space vehicle, testing the re-entry tiles for the Soviet Buran space shuttle. RAAF photos of the recovery were distributed internationally and were later included in a Buran exhibit at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. Between 1984 to 1986, No. 11 Squadron would upgrade to the latest P-3C variant and continue their surveillance duties. From 2006 to the present day, RAAF Orion tasks have been consolidated into Operation Resolute, a multi-service effort to protect Australia's borders and offshore maritime interests. There is also Operation Solania, a multinational effort to provide maritime surveillance in the Pacific, to which RAAF P-3s play a significant role. On 26th April 1991, at Cocos Island, a RAAF Orion ditched in a shallow lagoon short of the runway. Flying Officer Tom Henniker, a No. 10 Squadron pilot flying as additional crew, was killed instantly as the propellers separated and one penetrated the fuselage near the portside ditching station in which he was sitting. Project Air 5276 was initiated to extend the operational life of the fleet. Under this project, the internal arrangement of the aircraft was significantly altered, and radar, comms and other systems were upgraded. The introduction of sophisticated electronic warfare self-protection systems, data communication, and continuing upgrades to the aircraft's electro-optics infrared system meant the AP-3C was second to none as a maritime patrol and intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance platform. In September 1999, under Operations Spitfire and Warden, 5 P-3Cs provided surveillance and direct support to coalition naval surface forces around East Timor until 18 October 1999. In 2003, RAAF Orions were deployed to the Middle East to operate initially over Afghanistan under Operation Slipper and then Operation Falconer over Iraq. The Australian aircraft were tasked over a range of intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance operations both in the traditional maritime domain and overland. Almost a decade of demanding operations in the Middle East involved regional counter-terrorism, maritime surveillance, counter-piracy and overland operations over Iraq and Afghanistan in over 2,400 missions. The RAAF Orions saw a 96% success rate over 22,300 hours of flying. RAAF Orions have also been involved in civilian rescue operations, such as the 1995 rescue of solo yachtswoman Isabelle Autissier, 1,670 kilometers south of South Australia, and yachtsmen Raphael Dinelli, Thierry Dubois and Tony Bullimore in the 1996-97 Vendée Globe, solo-handed around the world yacht race. There was also a deployment of 4 Orions from Pierce to support the Australian-led search and rescue mission for Malaysian Airlines Flight MH370, which disappeared in March 2014. The Orion has also been tasked to conduct surveillance in support of state emergency services, conducting damage survey and imagery collection during major bushfires and floods. In 2007, the Australian government announced that the P-8A Poseidon was the preferred aircraft to replace the Orion, with the first of 15 Poseidons arriving in Australia late 2016. No. 11 Squadron completely retired its Orions by late 2018, and No. 10 Squadron retired its last 2 Orions in December 2023, being replaced by 4 MC-55A Peregrine aircraft, which will enter service over the next few years.